A pleasure, a real pleasure. And thank you, everyone. I can't admit that this is the first time that I've been asked to speak as an artist, but I have to say that I have not become schizophrenic, and I function as both an art historian, a curator, and an artist. So my first slide, I actually told them that there was a title for this talk. It was called the African Diva Project, ? And I'll tell you, your archives as you grow and age are not necessarily held by you. And I show you here an image by the Italian artist Modigliani, and the image next to it by me, which I did somewhere in the early 1990s. And my painting is owned by Jeffrey Stewart. And when the African Diva Project came out of the box, sometime around 2010 or so, my first exhibition, he quickly wrote to me and said, "Aha, I think I have the first one." And I had completely forgotten about this painting. And it reminded me of how difficult it can be for me to teach 20th century European, the Western canon, and talk about how the European artists took and did not tell where their inspirations were coming from until much, much later when art historians began to go, this looks familiar. And of course, it came with the collecting of African art by these very same people and others that created a panache, a certain special something about African art, to the point where African art has finally found its way into our large museums. Most of those collections having begun with things that were collected by people of European descent. So I took that Modigliani, and I have to say I really like Modigliani's work a lot, and gave some homage to the African artists that could have been a part of the reason why his work looks the way it does. But on to the African Diva Project. The African Diva Project is built around album covers. It's built around my particular romance with the past, the rituals of how one listened to music when I was a young person, where you had to watch that your vinyl did not get scratched. You know, you lifted it out of the jacket, you made sure it was clean, you put it down on the turntable, you needed all this equipment, you needed all this space. And as I traveled around with my collection, which really wasn't that large because I didn't have that much money to collect music, the tonnage and the change over to CDs and then now to just simply downloading, and how deteriorated my hearing has become that I can really not tell the difference between analog and digital. So the fact that I can carry my entire collection of music in my pocket is not such a bad thing. But the African Diva Project was about LP covers. LP covers that we stared at, looked at, read, the liners, everything that was a part of what it meant to be a music lover. And before I show you the next slide, when I started the project, I had someone, and I can't remember who that someone is, who said to me, "Margaret, you could be painting this stuff forever. How are you going to put brackets around it and contain it in some way so that you can maybe do something else?" So I said, okay, then I'm going to make 33 1/3 paintings. That's what I'm going to do. It's going to only be 33 1/3 paintings, which of course it's more now, but we'll talk about that later. And from the moment I said that, I thought to myself, how am I going to do 1/3 of a painting? And so I'm going to begin with the third, which was the last painting that I made in what has become side A of the African Diva Project. And that third ended up being the one of the three Supremes who actually made it, who was able to break out on her own as a soloist. And because I have a lot of fun with Photoshop, I will show you which one it was. No guessing here. Yes, indeed, it was Diana. So Diana Ross became the third. This painting is 20 by 60, which is a third of a 60-inch square. All of the side A paintings are square photographs. They're 30 by 30, or the largest one ended up being 60 by 60, but she's the slice. I put a lot of thought into this because after, this is the 34th painting that I've made. I thought a lot about what am I doing? Is it really just because it's fun? It is fun. Or because they're attractive, they give you that sense of pleasure. I'm looking at art, which is something that I really enjoy. It's something that has made me write about art. If I wasn't having fun, I wasn't going to write it. And that's what sort of kept me going as an art historian and also as an artist. But when I thought about Diana, did some reading about her, how much attention and money she brought to Motown, I realized that she wasn't just a woman who had a great talent and a great voice, but she was a performer, and a performer in a line of performers that we have often seen thrown up on the stage from vaudeville days in the 19th century. That's who Diana really was. She was used quite a bit. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. I actually saw her in Central Park in the rain back in the day when they used to have free performances in Central Park. They don't do that anymore. But she was spectacular, had an amazing weave. Amazing. And I knew one day she would find herself back into my life. And here it is as the Supreme who came forward. And she has been photographed for her albums in a manner that shows her to be well contained. The one image up here of her looking like a sick child, I never understood why that was an appropriate image to use for a star of her caliber, but she is photographed on her albums very often, pushed together, very vulnerable, that kind of thing. And I want to give a shout out to Nicole. I can't think of her last name right now, but she did a fabulous new book that just came out, Black Icons. Somebody help me. Fleetwood. Yes. And she did an entire chapter on giving face, which helped me think about how I wanted to talk about my work and Diana Ross. And these are images taken right off the internet of Diana giving face. And these are shots that were taken by a photographer by the name of Langdon, a white photographer. The majority of the designers of the LPs from this time were white designers. And it's not surprising because these are the people who have a sense of how to sell an image outside of the black buyer. So this is the Diana Ross album that I used for her as a soloist. This is a photograph of the return to painting in 2007, when I was pretty much struggling with going back to being a painter. I have only taken 2 painting classes in 1983 and 1984 at Amherst College. Everything I know about painting after that, I've pretty much taught myself. So every time I stopped painting, I felt like I had completely lost it. And sometimes stopping painting would be a year, 2 years, 3 years, that I wouldn't pick up a brush. So this is it's the only photograph that I have of this painting on its way. And she was the first African diva that I painted after the catalyst. I have a website that has way too much information on it, so what's on the website, you're not going to hear today. I hope that you'll go and visit it, and then there's a contact me button, so you can contact me. So this was the final piece. One of the things that I was not interested in was placing these figures inside of an environment where they could be seen. Where you could see that it was an album. The graffiti you see in the back, I work with cold wax mixed with oil, and then I write the titles of their songs in the background. So I don't have a lot of time left. Believe it or not, the flag has gone up. And but I wanted to talk about my one and only switcheroo in terms of what I did with the African Diva Project. You'll see more about RuPaul later as well. So RuPaul is the only non-anatomical diva, female diva in the entire collection. And I used the Supermodel album as the image to basically have a very hard time making a painting. The masks that I put on the African divas, on these female soloists, are masks that are danced by men in Africa. Even if the persona that they are speaking to or are becoming is a female, it's a male that's dancing. The mask that on RuPaul is a mask danced by the Mende. The Mende and the Temne in Sierra Leone are the only women who actually masquerade and in masks. They do not carve their own masks. The men are the only ones who carve them. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do for these performers, is to empower them in a way that they could not be empowered. And this is also to show you my process, where I put in the background, I put on the masks, and these are all painted masks. They're not the real masks. The real masks go later. And I wanted to show you one of these Mende masks in performance. It is a performance specifically for women when they return after their initiation to become adult members of their community. And here's the finished painting. Layers and layers of glazes. One of my favorite, it's now in the Leslie Lohman Museum of Gay and Lesbian Art. And Tammy Terrell. Now I'm going to show you more process. I do a drawing, which I refer to as a map, and then I do paint more than one at the same time, only under pressure, but I have done that for a show where I promised way 2 more paintings than I had already finished. And then I put on the skin, the areas that would have skin, and then I finished with the background and the clothing. And so I've done this now 42 times. I wanted a large image. This is 52 inches square. And so I had to go off the edge. This is Diana King. It's a black and white album. And so she's a black and white figure, and I wanted to give her some color. This is one of the most recent that I've done. The first I've done on paper. It's amazing to see it this big because it's only 9 by 13. This is Michelle Indiacello, and that's an actual brass can mask that she is wearing, and she is sitting on the lyrics to her song, Beautiful. And so I wanted to show you a video of what happened to me when I decided I was going to put the actual mask on the images. You can't change the orientation to make them flat. So when I got a commission from the Schomburg to make an African diva for Ntishaki Shange's 40th anniversary, and so I had to cut the mask in half so that I could use it for a profile. So the whole mask is there. It's a fairly large painting. It's coming back from Houston now, and it actually did get broken, but that's okay. I've done crazy things like performed in the subway, carrying my work, and the performance of the African divas have become something even more live. I was able to create an installation of the work to offer the opportunity for community members in Jamaica to actually become African divas. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if I could ever do it again, but I was amazed at how much people understood what it could be like to perform behind a mask, how transformative it could be. And there were people who came off the street, and people of all generations and of all genders, to become African divas. And the show was up the entire summer. And I would love for somebody to ask me to do it again, but I don't know that I could. Here are the 42 women giving you face. Thank you very much.